He looks so nice and soft. People say, oh, he seems like such a nice man. No, unless you saw him in action. And you saw that with a certain witness that went through hell. And when we wanted to do things, he wouldn't let us do those things. But when the government wanted something, they got everything. They got everything they wanted. It was a rigged trial. We wanted a venue change where we could have a fair trial. We didn't get it. We wanted a judge change. We wanted a judge that wasn't conflicted. And obviously he didn't do that. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We had a DA who was a failed DA.
And we're all well
Crime
aware,
is rampant in New York, violent crime. That's what
you know,
we're supposed to be
we're
looking
all
at.
well aware that
Crime is rampant.
what they're doing to Trump, they will do to all of us.
You had a man hitting him up with.
They will do that to us as well.
A machete. Whoever can imagine even a machete being wielded in a store, in a place where they're eating, and he's going rampant, and Bragg is down watching a trial on what they call
it's extremely
crimes. Falsifying.
Everything that's going on to Trump is what happens to third world countries that we destroy, which is fascinating.
That's a bad thing for me. I've never had that before. I'm falsifying. You know what falsifying business records is? In the first degree. They say falsifying business records. Sounds so good, right? It means that legal expense. I paid a lawyer, totally legal. I paid a lawyer a legal expense. And a bookkeeper, without any knowledge from me, correctly marked it down in the books. A very professional woman, highly respected. She testified. Marked it down in the books as a legal expense. So a legal expense, paid a lawyer, is a legal expense in the books. It's not sheetrock, construction, or any other thing. It's a legal expense. Think of that. This is what the falsification of business records were. And I said, what else are you going to call it? What else are you going to call it? Now, I would have testified. I wanted to testify. The theory is you never testify, because as soon as you testify, anybody, if it were George Washington, don't testify, because they'll get you on something that you said slightly wrong, and then they sue you for perjury. But I didn't care about that. I wanted to. But the judge allowed them to go into everything that I was ever involved in, not this case, everything that I was ever involved in, which is a first. In other words, you could go into every single thing that I ever did. Was he a bad boy here? Was he a bad boy there? And my lawyer said, what do you need to go through? And all you wanted to do is testify simply on this case. Because I would have loved to have testified. To this day, I would have liked to have testified. But you would have said something out of whack, like it was a beautiful sunny day and it was actually raining out. And I very much appreciate the big crowd of people outside. That's incredible what's happening. The level of support has been incredible. So the whole thing is legal expense was marked down as legal expense. Think of it. This is the crime that I committed, that I'm supposed to go to jail for 187 years for. When you have violent crime all over this city at levels that nobody's ever seen before, where you have businesses leaving, and businesses are leaving because of this, because heads of businesses say, man, we don't want to get involved with that. I could go through the books of any business person in this city, and I could find things that in theory, I guess, let's indict him, let's destroy his life.
Exactly.
But I'm out there, and I don't mind being out there because I'm doing something.
And now that this worked with Trump, don't be surprised if they start doing this with any Republican donors
can't be allowed to happen
out
to
there.
Other presidents. It should never be allowed to happen in the future. But this is far beyond me. This is bigger than Trump. This is bigger than me. This is bigger than my presidency. And the people understand it because I just see a poll just came out, the Daily Mail. That was the first one, came out, it was done last night right after the verdict, where I'm up 6 points. 6 points from what we already were. We were leading fairly substantially. We're up 6 points in the Daily Mail poll. Now, maybe other polls come out and it says something differently. But a lot of people have predicted it because the public understands, and they understand what's going on. This is a scam. There's a rigged trial. It shouldn't have been in that venue. We shouldn't have had that judge. He should have allowed us to have an election expert. We had the best expert, most respected expert, head of the Federal Elections Commission. He was all set to testify. He was waiting for 2 days. And when it was his turn, Bragg's people protested. And the judge knocked him out, said, you can't testify. He actually said, you can't testify for anything having to do with the trial. You can say what the federal elections is. Well, that doesn't help. Everybody knows that. But you can't testify. So essentially, he wasn't able to testify. Other people weren't able to testify. But with these people, they were able to use...
And keep in mind, everyone, Fani Willis
By the way,
and the district attorney in New York, they were hanging out at the White House with the Biden administration in regards to the Trump investigation.
And it had nothing to do with the case, but it had to do with politics. And do you notice the timing? The timing was perfect. This case was dead. It was dropped by every agency, every governmental board. It was dropped by the highly respected Southern District. They said, no, there's no case here. It was dropped by federal election, and that's what it's about. This is about a federal election, not a state election. You're not even allowed to look at it. They took the state and the city, and they went into a federal election. They're not allowed. The people from federal election, Southern District, and dropped the case. Everybody dropped the case. There was no case. Cy Vance dropped the case. And when Bragg came in, he said, this is the most ridiculous case I've ever seen. And who would have a certain person, again, gag order, who would have a certain person like this ever testify? He said, this is essentially one of the worst people I've ever seen, ever, to testify. He said, the craziest case I've ever seen. This is Bragg. Then when I announced I was running for president, a long time later, they decided to revive this case. And they got a judge, Judge Marchand, who was responsible for another case that was also brought. It destroyed the life of a very good man, by the way. Destroyed the life of a very good man who went to prison once, and then they just put him in prison again because they said he lied. He didn't lie. I looked at the statements he made. In fact, he didn't remember something, and they put him in jail. Again, they've destroyed him. With me for many years, he was an honorable person. He was an honest man. And if you look at what he did, supposedly, it never happened. There's never been anything like this. Over the education of his grandchildren. Over, he didn't report that he had a car or 2 cars on his income. I don't know. I wonder how many people here have cars. I wonder how many people said, oh, gee, I have a car that's worth X dollars. How do you even figure it? And I guess you do have to report it, but I would say probably almost nobody does. Nobody even thinks about it. They put this man, they destroyed this man, but they put him in jail again because they didn't want him to testify. They didn't want him to testify. That's why he went to jail. Put him in jail twice. He's 77 years old. Now, normally I'd say that's an old guy, but I don't feel 77. Nobody ever says that about me. I'd like them to say, gee, we have to have a little sorrow for this man, because they just don't say that about me, but maybe I'm better off that way. I think I'm probably better off that way. But they put him in jail twice. And you have to see what they put him in jail. And he was threatened by the judge. This man was told, you're going to get 15 years in jail if you don't give up Trump. And he was told that. You're going to get 15 years in jail. And he made a plea deal because he didn't want to spend the rest of his life. And he was told that viciously. We're living in a fascist state. He was told that viciously. So you can go to jail for 4 months, 5 months, or you can get 15 years in jail. So do a plea. Almost who wouldn't do that plea? Everyone does those pleas. It's a horrible thing. There's a whole group of lawyers that fight that. It's so unfair. It's so unfair. But they destroyed his life. So many other things. You look at Southern District didn't want to bring the case. nobody wanted to bring the case. And then you know who didn't want to bring the case most of all? Is Bragg. Bragg didn't want to bring it. But then he brought it, and they tried to make it a different case. They didn't say legal expense equal legal expense. Again, if I wrote down and paid a lawyer, and by the way, this was a highly qualified lawyer. Now, I'm not allowed to use his name because of the gag order. But, you know, he's a sleazebag. Everybody knows that. Took me a while to find out. But he was effective. He did work. But he wasn't a fixer. He was a lawyer. You know, they like to use the word fixer. He wasn't a fixer. He was a lawyer. At the time, he was a fully accredited lawyer. Now, he got into trouble not because of me. He got into trouble because he made outside deals, and he had something to do with taxi cabs and medallions, and he borrowed money. And that's why he went. And then he pled to three election violations. And as soon as I saw that, I said, I wonder why he did that. He pled. He took a deal. Now, he took a deal because he wanted to get off.
You don't have to like Trump,
In other words, I'll take a plea
but you
deal,
just
but I
have
wanna
to
get off.
admit at least the
And he wanted to
man
make a
is
deal with
willing
the
to
Southern
just
District.
say the truth
And they
and
wrote
just be real with
the
us.
worst report I think I've ever seen on
You don't have
any
to
human
like him.
being other than the
You can
report
say he's a bad
that
person.
was
Anyone who
written
gets involved in
on
politics,
James Comey
you have
by the
a level of
Inspector General.
psychoticness
Very
that
great
none of us have.
Inspector General, actually.
But at least he's being
Wrote
real,
a report that was so
and
bad.
you
This
can't
one
fault
was
him for that.
possibly worse. The Southern District, the judge didn't let us use it. He said, it's hearsay. I said, it's not hearsay. Wouldn't let us use it. This is about the man. But he got in trouble for a very simple reason. Because he was involved with borrowing a lot of money, and he did something with the banks. I don't know if it's defrauded the banks, but something happened. You guys know what it is. And then in addition to that, he gave up on three things where he wasn't guilty. In fact, they were going to testify in that. The head of the FEC, the Brad Smith, the election expert, #1 rated in the country, was going to testify. He took a plea on three things. He just added them in because that gave him more bargaining power with respect to me. But the three things that he pled on, having to do with the election and having to do essentially a little bit with me, they weren't crimes. They weren't crimes. Nor is paying money under an NDA. So we have an NDA, non-disclosure agreement. It's a big deal, a non-disclosure agreement. Totally honorable, totally good, totally accepted. Everybody has them. Every company has non-disclosure agreements. But the press called it slush fund and all sorts of other things. Hush money, hush money. It's not hush money. It's called a non-disclosure agreement. And most of the people in this room have a non-disclosure agreement with their company. It's a disgrace. So it's not hush money. It's a non-disclosure agreement, totally legal, totally common. Everyone has it. And what happened is he signed a non-disclosure agreement with this person, I guess other people, but it's totally honest. You're allowed to make the payment. You don't have to make it. You can make it any way you want. It's a non-disclosure agreement. And he signed that. And there was nothing wrong with signing it. And this should have been a non-case. And everybody said it was a non-case, including Bragg. Bragg said, until I ran for office. And then they saw the polls. I was leading the Republicans. I was leading the Democrats. I was leading everybody. And all of a sudden, they brought it back. It's a very sad thing that's happening in our country. And it's a thing that I'm honored. In a way, I'm honored. It's not that it's pleasant. It's very bad for family. It's very bad for friends and businesses. But I'm honored to be involved in it because somebody has to do it. And I might as well keep going and be the one. But I'm very honored to be involved because we're fighting for our Constitution. The money that was paid legally. There was nothing illegal. In fact, the lawyer in creating the NDA, because at that time he was a fully accredited lawyer. He wasn't a fixer.
If this NDA
I
was
never
such a
thought of him
big
as a
deal,
fixer.
then most of
The media
Hollywood
called him a fixer,
and most of
or
the
the
elites
prosecutors
would
called
be
him a
in
fixer.
trial right
He was a
now
lawyer.
for hush money because of their
And he was
NDAs.
fairly good.
So many of us out
Later
there
on, I
using
didn't
your
like what he
basic
did.
critical
I didn't
thinking
like,
skills
for instance,
will know, well, this
I didn't
smells
like
a
that
lot
when
like
I became
shit.
president, he went around and made deals with companies. When I heard that, he was gone. He was gone. And he had payments coming to him, and a lot of this involved things that are very simple. There was nothing wrong. This was standard stuff, all standard stuff. Everything involved was standard. There was no crime here. In fact, I just watched a couple of the reports. You watched Jonathan Turley, Andy McCarthy, Greg Jarrett. You look at all of these people, Mark Levin, all very talented people, great people, many more. And they don't know me, essentially. They don't know me. They're legal scholars and experts. But I look at them. I watched Turley this morning saying, there's no crime here. Everybody says there's no crime here, except for this DA that's got the city out of control with crime. It's absolutely out of control. So we have an NDA that was signed. We have legal expenses. And here's the thing on legal expenses. You have 100 where they say they do a charge. I just recorded this out. Falsification of business records in the first degree. It sounds so bad. I said, wow. And even my own lawyers, I get very upset with them because they don't say what it is. They say, well, falsification of legal records is only a felony. Well, that's a lot.
Isn't it wild that New York is pretty much Kurt Russell's apocalyptic film, Escape from New York? It's currently like that right now. So you have New York that's pretty much destitute. And the biggest issue is Trump. Not the crime, not the massive sexual assaults, not the child trafficking, but Trump.
In the history of politics, I believe.
And I've always said this about the United States. We are a third world nation. No, we are a first world nation with third world problems. Okay?
$42, $53, $38.
We are a first world nation with third world problems. That is the United States. And I realized this in 10th grade from a food charity event that I went and did. And in 10th grade, when you realize that, it changes your whole perception of reality. It sure did for me. In high school, I had a lot of moments that completely changed my entire perception of reality to such an extent now that this is why, like, I can walk around and be like, yeah, we live in a first world nation with third world problems. You can have an iPhone 11, all right, and make money from just doing TikTok dances, and right behind you there is a homeless man who is about to die. That is the United States.
A little while ago, the Daily Mail. Does anybody read the Daily Mail? It's very good. They have a good poll. At least I like it today. And the Daily Mail just came out with a poll, and it has Trump up 6 points in the last 12 hours. 6 points. 6 points since this happened. Who thought this could happen? Because the people of our country know it's a hoax. They know it's a hoax. They get it. You know, they're really smart, and it's really something. So we're going to be appealing this scam. We're going to be appealing it on many different things. He wouldn't allow us to have witnesses. He wouldn't allow us to talk. He wouldn't allow us to do anything. The judge was a tyrant. And you got to see that with Bob Costello. A fine man. I've never seen anything like it. And neither has anybody that was in that courthouse where he demanded that the courthouse be cleared. Now, the good news is most of the people in the courthouse were the media. And anybody that was in the media, if you're fair, you'll say, wow. That was anger. That was crazed. He was crazed. And the reason that Bob Costello acted a little bit upset, which I think he has a right to, was that every question he was being asked was being objected to by the other side and sustained by the judge. Sustained. I think he did it many times. I don't know what the number, many times. Even I was sitting there saying, and these were basic questions. And I never saw anybody treated that way by a judge. And I've been treated very badly by two other judges also, because it's all the same thing. And it all comes out of the White House. Crooked Joe Biden, the worst president in the history of our country. He's the worst president in the history of our country. The most incompetent. He's the dumbest president we've ever had. He's the dumbest president, most incompetent president, and he's the most dishonest president we've ever had. And so many of he's a Manchurian candidate. You take a look at the way he treats China, Russia, so many others. You know, I ended the Russian pipeline. It was dead. He comes in and he approves it. And he gets $3.5 million, meaning $3.5 million is paid to the family, his family, from the mayor of Moscow's wife. And I said, where did that come from? Nobody wants to talk about it. But he's a very big danger to our country. And the only way they think they can win this election is by doing exactly what they're doing right now. Win it in the courts because they can't win it at the ballot box. So we're going to show them that, we're going to fight. It's actually, I don't know, it's something where I'm wired in such a way that a lot of people would have gone away a long time ago. They would have gone away after impeachment hoax number 1. That was a total hoax. I had great support from the Republican Party, though. Then you had impeachment hoax number 2. And then they formed the committee. How about they formed the committee of thugs? The J6 committee of thugs. And they took their records and they destroyed all of the records after the committee was abandoned because those records were great for us. Now, can you imagine if Republicans did that? Everybody would have been in jail by now. Think of the unselect, I call it the unselect, they call it select committee, I call it the unselect committee of thugs. They meet, it's 100% Democrat and 2 past Republicans that are no longer Republicans, that are no longer in business anymore, thank you. But it was all Democrats and 2 wayward Republicans. Liz Cheney and crying Adam Kinzinger. He cries every time he gets on television. He's the most emotional human being I think I've ever seen. And that was our representatives. These 2 people were our rep. So they had all this stuff that they're leaking. And then when it came time to look at the records, like where the police said and the Capitol Guard said that I supplied, think of it, that I recommended as many soldiers or National Guard as you want. 10,000. If you had 500, you wouldn't have had a problem. There wouldn't have been a J6. But Nancy Pelosi and the group didn't want it. Anyway, so they have testimony to all of that I did not attack the Secret Service agent in the front of a car. You know, these are strong people. And I supposedly went to the driver, and I grabbed him around the neck. And he rebuffed me, and then I went to the other guy, who I think is a black belt in karate.
Oh, my God.
He's slightly younger than me. Maybe 35 years,
Oh my
years,
God.
50 years. And I grabbed him around the neck and said, he's a black belt in karate. They know how to get somebody from around their neck. They would have gone like this, and that would be...
Yo, Trump.
Actually, I had a friend that said, you shouldn't dispute that. That makes you look like the toughest cookie we've ever seen. You should have let that go on. But the fact is, it never happened. It was all made up. And that was proven to be made up. It proved to be a false story. And they deleted and destroyed all of that information, every ounce of it. We're dealing with a corrupt government. We have a corrupt country. Our elections are corrupt. Our borders are open. Our borders are going to be closed very soon. November 5th is going to be the most important day in the history of our country. Now, when I say that, because my people are always saying, do this, because we're fighting for America, DonaldJTrump.com. I hope everybody watching right now, DonaldJTrump.com, because it really makes a difference. They have a lot of money on the other side. I don't know where they get it. Nobody knows where they get it. But for some reason, they get money. But
George
they're not
Soros.
on the side of our country. In many ways, I think they hate our country. Who on earth can want open borders where people are allowed to pour in from countries unknown, from places unknown, from languages that we haven't even heard of. We have people sitting in schools with languages where very few people have ever even heard of these languages. It's not like Spanish or French or Russian. Languages unknown. We have people coming from corners of the globe, and many of them are not good people. Many terrorists, record levels of terrorism, record levels of terrorists have come into our country. Record. They've never seen anything like it. You know, there was a report that in 2019, I don't believe this, by the way, the media gave it, and it was good for me, believe it or not. They said in 2019, there were no terrorists recorded that came into our country. I don't believe that. I don't think that's possible. But 2019 was a Trump year. I don't believe that that could be possible. But they said no terrorists came into our country. So let's say it was close. Let's say it was close. But now record levels of terrorists, record levels, the highest level we've ever seen of terrorists are pouring into our country. You have China with just in the last few months, 29,000 people came in, and I looked at them on a line, and they look like perfect soldiers. They're almost all male, from 19 to 25. It looks like a recruiting exercise. They have beautiful tents. They have propane stoves. They have cell phones, the best you can buy. I said, what's going on? It looks like they're building an army right in our country. Now, I don't think that would happen, right? We're losing our country. And I really think that this is an event, what took place yesterday with this judge. Look, we have conflicted, but he's a crooked judge. And you'll understand that. And I say that knowing that it's very dangerous for me to say that. And I don't mind. Because I'm willing to do whatever I have to do to save our country and to save our Constitution. I don't mind. So thank you. So we will continue the fight. We're going to make America great again. Very simple.
This is going to be a long weekend.
MAGA. They say
a long weekend.
We're going to fight MAGA. We're going to stop MAGA. It's make America great again. That's all it is. MAGA. Make America great again. Our country's in serious trouble. We owe $36 trillion. We were energy independent for the first time ever. And now we're begging Venezuela for oil. One statistic you have to hear. Venezuela was crime-ridden. Caracas, the cities, crime-ridden. 2 years ago, 3 years ago. They just reported a 72% drop in crime in the last year. Because all of their criminals, most of them, and the rest are coming in now. The ones that didn't come in. In Venezuela, their prisons have been emptied into the United States. Their criminals and drug dealers have been taken out of the cities and brought into the United States. And that's true with many other countries. The Congo has just released a lot of people from jail. Congo, Africa, just released a lot of people from their prisons and jails and brought them into the United States of America. This is what's happening to our country.
He's not wrong. The Redacted YouTube channel has covered a lot of the migration in South America, and it's really scary what's going on down there.
That's the least of it. People are taking over our luxury hotels, migrants, and yet our veterans, our great veterans, are living on the streets like dogs. They're living on the streets. But migrants are living in luxury hotels. And
they're kicking veterans out of the homes as well and replacing them with migrants.
It's my honor to be doing this. It really is. It's a very unpleasant thing, to be honest. But it's a great, great honor. We're gonna do what I have to do. I'm going to do it. And the support has been, that's why I mentioned the number of $39 million. That's why I mentioned we're up 6 points. And we went up a lot over the last month because everybody saw it was a rigged deal. It was a rigged trial. But we're going to make America great again. We're going to make it better than ever before. November 5th, remember, November 5th is the most important day in the history of our country. Thank you very much, everybody.
All right, there it is. Donald Trump remarks at Trump Tower, really turning it in to if you went to a rally, you would hear similar comments right there. But again, talking just a day after the guilty charges there, 34 all said and done. Hi, everyone. Mike Pace here. Thanks so much for joining us on Live.
Well, ladies and gents, it's safe to say that this press conference is definitely going to go down in history as probably the turning point in American politics, American hegemony. I mean, if you really take time and just think about what Trump is kind of saying there, and like I was saying, like, you don't have to like Trump, but you have to at least appreciate the fact that he's willing to be honest with us as best as he can without getting his ass thrown in jail. And that's the kind of the irony of it all, right? Is that they put a gag order on him that he can't talk about the trial, but they're not going to put him in jail. The last American president vibe. Oh man, Jay, that is very eerily accurate. I actually got chills as you said, as I was reading that. It really is the last American president. And you know what's funny that you say that, right, Jay, is like, why is it, right? It's funny that you say that, because when you say that, it reminds me of all of the coup d'etats that the United States government has done to various countries that are democratically elected, where those countries will have their last true president, their last true leader, and then they're assassinated. They die mysteriously, whatever it may be. And then what's followed is violence, corruption, extortion, exploitation of men, women, children, resources. And you saw, I know, Jay, you caught what I'm sure you saw a little bit of Hotep Jesus yesterday, and he was talking about that video with that woman who was part of the Democratic Party in California, and she's pretty much saying, I'm done. You guys are literally trafficking children and advocating for pedophilia. And it's like you're seeing the last American president literally telling the entire country, like, what comes next isn't going to be America. I don't know what it's going to be. Everyone has their speculations and their ideas as to what is going to happen after this whole situation with Trump. But yeah, I mean, Jay's right. Jay's absolutely right. This is the last American president. And it doesn't matter whether you like him or you hate him for his policies or any of that kind of stuff. It's the fact that the way he's being treated and how this is going to affect all of us as citizens, and more importantly, as Americans. I don't even know what to say. It's absolutely fascinating. And then you go online, you go on social media. He's like, since he was found guilty, he has gone like 33 million in donations. Andrew Tate is out here saying, I'm going to be donating. You have everyone's pretty much like, and this is why I laughed, because when the movie Civil War came out, I haven't seen it yet, but when I watched the trailers and I was looking at this, everyone was like, oh, this is Trump, and I'm like, nah, this isn't Trump. And I used to make the speculation that the movie Civil War was like a reflection of what would happen if Gavin Newsom became president. But I'm starting to wonder, after Jay saying the last American president, if that movie Civil War wasn't about Biden. Because in just in an allegorical sense, because right now, you know, if Biden becomes president again through whatever types of machinations they do, then don't be surprised when the split happens. You already have Oregon trying to work on seceding from the Union. You have Texas already working on that. So how many more states after the Trump guilty verdict are going to start discussing the idea of seceding from the United States government? Because as Jay is saying, this is the last American president. This is this is right now the last gasp of America. If Trump goes down, as crazy as it sounds, America goes down. It's crazy. I'm actually kind of getting a little bit of chills right now thinking about this, because I think for all of us, this is very surreal, but at the exact same time, we can't comprehend this. And I mean for people who are of the Hotep mindset, people who are of free thinking, of critical thinking, who advocate for individual thought, for individuality, for living that type of mentality. We're seeing this and we're freaking out because we realize, and some of us may be freaking out internally, but a majority of us are freaking out internally because we know that this type of reaction, they're coming for us next. And it doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. This is going to be the next thing. And like, Trump was kind of saying, like, any business person in New York or in the United States, if you are pro-Trump, you may find yourself in the exact same position as Trump. Same with Democrats. If you aren't willing to go all the way to the left with normalizing pedophilia, with normalizing crimes and all this kind of stuff, similar to what the Boston mayor wants to do, then you're going to find yourself in a Trump trial. So we as Americans, like, we have to voice our frustration in a peaceful, sensible, respectable manner. And like I said, this is going to be a long weekend, right? In fact, this is going to be June is going to be a very long and exhausting month. And when you had the State Department coming out making claims, right, that there are going to be terrorist attacks on the LGBTQ community, and don't be surprised that you're going to have pride parades that are all about Trump is guilty, Trump is guilty. So you're going to have a lot of false flag events. You're going to have a lot of federal agents incentivizing lone wolf behaviors, copycat behaviors. It's going to be a very long and exhausting month. And I Hotep Jesus made a comment about, conservatives posting upside down American flags. I didn't know. I thought he was kind of making a joke until I saw it. And I was like, oh, this is serious. This is a serious situation. And it's you could almost say that the Democratic Party, the current administration, they have sealed their fate. So even if they win the election, nobody's going to believe it. Nobody's going to believe it. Even if Biden wins, if he wins, no one's going to believe it. After this, the credibility of the Democratic Party, the credibility of the federal government is gone. And I would say most state government credibility is gone as well, especially New York. I don't know how the federal government expects Americans to go fight the Russians. You've lost all credibility. So while you make Trump guilty, you're now basically going to, target Russian sites. We already know that it's the UK and the America that are pressing the little green button that fires off the missiles in Ukraine. It's not the Ukrainian army. We're well aware of that. We already know that there are French mercenaries, Polish, UK, American mercenaries already fighting in Ukraine. So you have to think about how this, in terms of the ramifications, how are you going to convince the American people, regular American citizens, to go fight for a war when they don't even trust you? You've lost any forms of credibility. So while they continue to agitate Russia, while they continue to be complacent in a genocide in the Middle East, while they continue to just circle jerk China with Taiwan, and now you have Haiti, the United States has lost, the government has lost its credibility. This has solidified the loss of credibility. Yeah, you're going to have pockets of people who are still going to trust the federal government and the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. You're still going to have them there. Yeah, they're part of the hive mentality. As I like to put it, they've fully drank the Kool-Aid. They ain't going back. But for the majority of Americans, they don't trust the federal government anymore. So whatever the federal government does now, no one's going to trust it. How do you expect to engage in a world war when none of the citizens trust you and are willing to fight for you, when we know exactly what you're doing? How do you expect the American people to continue to allow the border situation? You've essentially the federal government has essentially made itself in many ways almost obsolete. So what are they going to do when states near the borders start taking initiative? What is the federal government going to do when states start taking the initiative? And like I was saying, when southern countries start seceding from the federal government, right? You've just given them a reason to do that. How are you going to maintain hegemony across the entire world while the states fracture? You can't recruit anybody into the military. Half of the country is overweight and on some form of SSRI, have some form of mental health problem. We've seen those videos recently of recent American soldiers training. It's embarrassing. So I don't know how the federal government expects to maintain its grasp on the world when it has fully lost hold of its people back in the States. So what are they going to do? Is the federal government going to start putting out the hoses and the dogs for people protesting Trump's crime, just like they did for the kids protesting the genocide in Gaza? All credibility has been lost. And Trump has solidified himself as the people's champion. And like I said a year ago, I said a year ago, what did I say a year ago? To make a martyr is to make a people's champion. And that's what they have made Trump. He said it himself. He's willing to be the martyr for our Constitution, for our rights. And you made him a martyr. You didn't kill him. You didn't physically execute Trump. You did it in a metaphor. You executed him. And now you've made him a martyr. And you would think that the United States government, that the deep state, the oligarchs, they would have known from the past that the moment you make a martyr, you have solidified your inability to maintain control. So even now, right? Even now, if they were to take out Trump, it's already too late. He's already a martyr to the people. He's already a people's champion. So even if you were to execute him, it wouldn't matter. And this is the crux and the irony of all of this, is in the end, they don't win. The federal government didn't win anything. The Biden administration didn't win. The Democrats didn't win, and the Republicans that are in on it too, they didn't win. They are so far removed from the essential reality of American citizens that they actually thought they won today. And that's probably the most scariest part about it, is that they actually think they won today. And it doesn't matter what kind of instigations the FBI does or the CIA does within our country or other countries around the world right now that end up protesting against this verdict. Because people already know. After January 6th, after the woman governor and those and how 20 out of the 22 guys that were arrested that wanted to kidnap and blow the bridge, they were FBI informants. The Uvalde shooting, the Buffalo shooter, Oklahoma bombing. It's to the point now where there's no way for the federal government to maintain any type of credibility or control. Go ahead, keep filling in the country with the illegals. Go ahead, keep doing all of that stuff. You've already lost the plot. How many, we have seen video, you can literally look up videos of migrants who have been brought here, given 10 grand, given food stamps, given everything, and they're still like, I'm going back home. How does it make sense? What's the point of having, 10 grand in food stamps, all right, but you're still homeless and you're outside, or you're still living in a hotel, or you're living in one of the encampments that the federal government has built? What's the point of having 10 grand in EBT and having an iPhone and 10 grand of, spending money for whatever, but you're still homeless? What can you do with that money? You have a lot of illegals who have come to this country who now are going back. Also, you now have a lot of Americans who are living in Mexico illegally who are now getting deported. Trump has solidified himself as a champion for the people. He has become a martyr. And this is going to be a very long summer. And they should have never done this. I'll tell you one thing, had they just found him not guilty, everything would have just kept on going as business as usual. And even though the Democrats already had lost the election, at least you would have at least maintained some semblance of credibility in a sense. But now that's gone. It's gone. It's over. Now, I don't know if that, like Jay said, this is the last American president. This might be the last year. Like, I don't know how this will translate over into next year. Because if Biden becomes elected again, more than half of the country will not accept it. And you thought January 6th was crazy? You thought the summer of love was crazy? If Biden gets reelected, that's a wrap. Because not only will the American people lose credibility in the federal government, they'll lose credibility in the elections. They'll lose credibility in the state government. They'll lose credibility in everything. And then what follows that? You know, this is what's kind of funny about it. And I think, like, if you've ever seen the movie Red or Red 2, you know, solid, you know, action films with, you know, Morgan Freeman and Bruce Willis and all that. And there's a scene where they're pretty much kidnapping the vice president, ironically, who's running for president. And they end up, you know, getting into a firefight with the Secret Service. And John Malkovich, he's there, and he's like, man, I remember the CIA. He's like, I remember the Secret Service being a lot tougher. And I really like that, because it really connects with the way the CIA and these kind of federal agencies have been working now. They're so bad at their jobs. Like, look at they're so bad at their jobs that regular people are exposing them for being bad at their jobs. So we have these, you know, federal agencies that don't have any backbone. They've lost their balls, and at this point, it's just a big circle jerk. You know, you have supposedly people in the FBI, you know, who are completely against Mayor Garland. But none of them will actually make any real substantial outbursts. They won't go and they won't speak out, but they'll leak information. So what happens now? What happens with the people within the federal government who supported Trump? This is what I mean. When I mean by more than half of the country has lost their faith in the federal government, that also includes people who work in the federal government. So how long before they say F it and they just start leaking all sorts of crazy stuff? What happens with the people that work within the federal government who support Trump, who are now completely disillusioned by this? What are we going to do when we start seeing protests with upside down American flags? And how much of that is going to be, you know, psyops and agitators? Because at this point, I don't know what the agitators can do to agitate people any more so. I think it's pretty much done. There's nothing that the federal government can do to agitate the American people now to act against their best favor. Because at what point, what do they have to lose? I'm completely blown away. You know what Jay said, it's so true. And then just hearing, you know, Trump, and like he was just like, when you listen to the way Trump was talking during his press conference, he was being real. He was being like, look at this. Look around. The thing that they were doing to me, they were doing to regular folks just to get at me. This is, you know, everyone's like, it's unprecedented. It's all these crazy things. It is, but like I said, people now have lost faith in their government. And, you know, if you want to jump on the case and be like, well, this is part of the World Economics plan and all of that, and I'll be honest with you, I don't even think their plan is going to even work out. I think they don't have anyone who's competent and in power anymore. And I think they've lost the plot. They've lost hold of this whole thing. So I don't even think it's going to play out the way they wanted it to play out. I think, you know, whatever plans that the, you know, occult organizations and the deep state, whatever plans that they had, I honestly think they just don't have any competent people working on this stuff anymore. It's like, how do you expect? You can't manipulate people anymore the way you used to. So whether it's the World Economic Forum, whether it's the military industrial complex, whether it's the NIH, World Health Organization, they're already losing their plot too with the bill that would essentially give the World Health Organization complete control over every government in the world, which would essentially move us towards that one world government. That's falling through. They're getting desperate. Countries are pulling out of that. They've lost the plot. They have lost any sense of control and credibility. That there's no point anymore. Whether it's BRICS nations, whatever it may be, people are completely are done with the complete hierarchy that has been in play for a very long time. People are done. And like I was saying, had they just went with a no guilty verdict, Trump would have had his speech, people would have been like da 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 this, da 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 that, and it would have just kind of been just another thing. It would have just been like, see, just another corruption, can't trust them, and people would be fine. They'd be pissed, they'd be annoyed, there'd be some protests and outcries. But this is a whole different level. This is a whole different breed. You've essentially proven everyone right. This is what they've done. They have proven all the conspiracy theorists. They've proven all of the anarchists. All the people they've proven them all right. So you've justified them. You've justified their existence. And you've justified their voice. So now they're going to have an even larger platform. This whole thing has given the Democratic Party, the deep state, the Biden administration, all of their enemies a platform to speak even louder and to get more people to wake up and to join them into expressing their frustration in a peaceful, ethical manner. We have to say those things because of YouTube and the reality of the situation. So, congratulations. You played yourself. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Lounge Ronin. All things, everything. If you've made it this far, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. And until next time, stay positive.